Hi, my name is Dewan, and I'll be going over homework 3. This is the chat where we send and receive messages. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick. I just wanted to confirm on this sheet, on this slide, that I have completed all the test cases and got all of the correct answers for the total points. Okay, so in here, I'm going to start off with chat client. Okay, so in chat client, we import SYS, we import the socket, and then I also have two helper functions called client send and client receive. So the first thing we do is we store the command line arguments store the command line arguments array into array args, and then I created a variable called port that stores the first command line argument in port, where the 0th command is the program name. Okay, so then we do socket. So I named it S1, and this creates a socket, then connects on the provided port and gets the username from standard input. After that, we print what was requested. Prints waiting for a request from server from standard output. In the following line, I do s1.connect, and I connect it to the local host and the port, connecting to the server over the port. After that, we print in what is your name to the standard output, and then I define a variable called name that reads the standard input and replaces the new line character with an empty character, and then stores it in the string name. After that, we print sending name to server. Then I create two separate threads, a receive thread and a send thread. So I named it R thread, and this calls the receive function in client receive and stores the thread in receive thread. And then I also created S thread. Before that I do rthread.start, which starts the thread saved and received thread. And in the following line, I do send thread, or S thread in this case, which calls the send function in client send and stores the thread in S thread. And then I start that as well. Okay, now we will go ahead and get into client send. Okay, so in this, we have similar things that we are doing, and I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So we imported SYS, OS, threading, and socket, and we have a class called send, which creates a send class that implements the threading.thread class. We do a function called initialize with 3 variables to create an initialize constructor and a init constructor with arguments of self, S1, and message. Next, we call the threading.thread constructor passing self, and then we do self.s1 equals s1 to store s1, or in this case it will be the socket, in the memory variable s1. And then we do self.message equals message to do the same thing. After that, we have a function run with the parameter self. That creates a run function, takes argument self, and is called in the implemented start function. And then I say while self.message, so loop as long as it has a value. And then in the following line, we will encode and send the message. And then the line after that, we save standard input to the message without the new line character. And then we exit the process. Great, okay. Now I will get into client receive. Okay. So this one was not the main lines of code. We just imported OS, threading, and socket. In this class, we have a class receive that implements the threading.thread class to receive messages. And then it receives a class that implements threading.thread class. We also call a initialize with 2 variables this time. And these 2 variables are self and S1. So after that, we call the threading.thread constructor, passing self, and then we do self.s1 equals s1 to store s1 in the variable s1. So the memory variable s1 and s1. Okay, and then I make another function called run. Run receives messages until there are no more, and then exits. We create run, which takes the argument self and is passed in to the implemented start function. Okay, and then I created a variable message bytes, and then I do s1 self.s1.receive 1024 to receive a message of up to 1024 bytes and saves to MSG bytes. So while true, loop until standard input is closed. Go ahead and print MSG bytes decode. So decode the message and print out to standard output as a string, and receive a message up to 1024 bytes, and then save it into that variable, and then exit the process. Okay, now we will get into chat server. And click that. Okay, so in this we imported SYS socket and sender receive. Similar to what we did in chat client, we also have a port that calls in the first argument of args, which also holds arguments. And then I made a server socket variable, server s, that does socket.socket to initialize server socket with the socket as the AF initialize in the sock stream. And the next line we do sock ops with socket dot sol socket and socket dot read at user and then the number 1, which allows multiple sockets on the same port. After that, we're gonna bind to the port, bind the server socket to the port, and then we will go ahead and listen for sockets with a backlog value of 5. While true, so basically we're looping for a long time. We are going to assign S1 in ADDR for address to server s.accept, which accepts connection and stores socket and socket in S1 and address. And then we're going to ahead and go to server receive.receive s1.start, which creates a new thread by calling receive in server receive and passes S1 to receive from, and then starts the thread again. With the last line, we're going to go ahead and do server receive.clients.append S1, which appends S1 to the end of the global array server receive the clients. Okay, and then finally, we're going to go ahead and do the helper function for that, which was server receive. So with server receive, a bit more involved. So we did the imports of OS threading and socket, created a global variable clients, and then make that an array, an empty array to initialize it. And the next line we have a class receive, and then this creates receive class that implements the threading.thread class. We create an initial function with arguments self and s1, and then we go ahead and in the next line calls the thread constructor passing self, and then self.s1 equals s1 to store the s1 in the memory variable s1. And then after that, we make a function run of self to create a run function which takes the argument self and is called an implemented start function. After that, we create a variable name, and then we do self.s1.receive 1024.decode, which decodes the first message and stores it in the name. Excuse me. And then after that, we have MSG bytes. So self.s1.receive 1024 again. That stores the next encoded message in MSG bytes. Okay, and then while MSG bytes is not empty, we're gonna go ahead and create the message and call the message the name that we just assigned, plus the colon, plus the decoding the message from prepend name and the string to the message and store it in the message. In the following line, we made an if statement. Sorry, both hands. In the next line, we made a for loop. So for client and clients, for each client and global variable, if this client does not equal self.s1, if it's not the same, then we go ahead and encode the message and send the client. And then we go ahead and also get out of that loop and then receive a message up to 1024 bytes again and save the MSG. And then we go ahead and do clients.remove self.s1. And so when MSG is empty, remove self.s1 from global variable clients. And that is my run through. Thank you.